Hey guys, tonight we visit a quiet lake just after the sun has dipped beneath the treetops. The sky still holds onto its last lavender hue, and the air has that cool stillness that feels like a pause between thoughts. You can almost hear the lake breathing, slow, patient, knowing more than it tells. Along the shore, a bundle of unlit lanterns waits, their delicate paper skins soft as moth wings. You're the only one here. Or maybe not. The shadows don't speak, but they feel friendly enough. You probably wouldn't make it here on a typical Tuesday, not unless something inside you needed to. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing, drop your location and the current time in the comments. I'd love to know who I'm whispering to tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The grass beneath you is cool and slightly damp. It brushes your palms when you lean back, as if offering some small comfort. In front of you, the lake stretches out like a mirror that doesn't just reflect your face, it reflects everything you're not quite saying. You hold the first lantern in your hands. It's light. So light you wonder how something so delicate could carry a wish. But maybe that's the trick. Maybe wishes don't need weight to be real. There's no rush. The moment opens like a yawn. Soft and slow, you look up at the sky. It's not dark yet, not fully. Just that liminal time when birds have gone quiet and crickets haven't quite begun. You think of how often you run from silence. But here, the silence feels like a friend who doesn't need to fill the space with chatter. It just sits with you. You realize you haven't really breathed all day, not the kind of breath that reaches your belly. So you take one now. Deep and low, it feels like the lake exhales with you. A tiny match flares to life in your hand. Surprising in the way fire always is, sudden, small, but powerful. You hold the flame to the candle inside the lantern. The wick catches quickly, and before you can talk yourself out of it, you whisper something, barely more than a thought, and let the lantern go. It rises just an inch off your palm before it drifts onto the water. The lake accepts it with a gentle lap, like it's used to such things. You watch it float, a small, glowing dot, slowly being pulled by the tiniest current you didn't even notice before. Some say lakes have memories, that they hold onto the echoes of what people give them, tears, laughter, silence, but maybe they just know how to keep secrets. The lantern moves farther away. Your whisper, whatever it was, goes with it. You don't even try to remember what you said. It's better that way, like throwing a message in a bottle and not watching where the tide takes it. There's something deeply human in that act of letting go. Maybe it's why people love rituals like this. They give shape to things we don't have words for, and they give us permission to move on. As the lantern becomes just another dot among the stars reflected on the water, you feel your shoulders drop. You didn't even realize they were tight. It's funny, isn't it, how tension settles in you quietly, like dust. Only when you sit still do you notice how much you've been carrying. A frog chirps nearby. Just one, as if to say, I see you. You smile, not at the frog exactly, but at the smallness of the moment and how strangely important it feels. You lie back for a minute, looking up at the darkening sky. A few stars poke through now, shy but certain. The wind brushes your skin like a story you haven't heard yet. One you might fall asleep before finishing, but that's okay. You think of how strange it is to feel alone but not lonely. How the lake doesn't ask for anything but your presence. How it doesn't judge your thoughts. Or how often they loop. It just reflects. Maybe you came here because your soul was tired of being edited, of needing to explain or justify every feeling. Out here, the messiness of being human feels softer somehow, like it belongs. You imagine the lake whispering back to you. Not in words, but in rhythm, in hushes, in the way the ripples glide outward from the lantern. Not fast, just sure, and maybe, Just maybe, the lake understands more than it lets on. What if there's a version of you, one that exists only in this quiet light, who knows exactly what you need, and has been waiting for you to sit still long enough to listen? The thought isn't scary, it's comforting, like the idea that you're not lost, just layered, that under everything you think you should be, there's still a soft, steady center. You sit back up. The lantern is now a speck in the distance, joining the stars both above and below, and somehow, watching it float away doesn't feel like losing something. It feels like remembering. You look down at the bundle of unlit lanterns beside you, and for the first time in a long while, you wonder what it would feel like to light another one, not because you have to, but because you want to. The lake waits, quiet, patient, knowing. The second lantern sits in your lap like a folded question. You brush your fingers across its paper surface, feeling the soft ridges where it was once flattened. It's almost like holding a secret, something you've known for years but never spoken aloud. The flame for this one comes easier. Your hands are steadier now. The hush around you deepens, wrapping the moment like a warm blanket folded just right. You light the candle at its base, and for a second, the glow dances across your skin, making you look almost translucent, like the version of you that exists only in dreams. You hesitate this time, not out of fear, but out of reverence. You realize this lantern deserves more than a quick whisper. So you pause, you breathe, and then, with a soft voice that only the lake could possibly hear, you speak the kind of wish that doesn't start with, "I want," but with, "I wonder. I wonder if I'm still allowed to hope for something I gave up on." It's not a question you expect answered. It's more like an offering, fragile, tremulous. You set the lantern down on the water. It floats with a gentleness that feels almost shy, like a small creature that isn't sure if it's safe yet. And then, slowly, it drifts forward, picking up a quiet current. Following the first, you watch it go, and for the first time in a long while, you don't look back at yourself with disappointment. You don't measure how far behind you feel or how often you've hesitated. You just watch, and in watching, you begin to feel something shift. The lake, in its stillness, becomes a mirror not just for your face but for the parts of you you've ignored. There's a moment, just a heartbeat, when you think you see your younger self sitting across the lake. Not waving, not smiling, just sitting, barefoot, knees pulled to the chest, watching you. And you don't feel sad, you feel witnessed. Some say wishes are childish, that dreams belong to people who don't yet understand how the world works. But maybe dreams are for those who do understand, and still choose them anyway. Like lanterns on a lake, they don't demand results, they only ask to be released. A cool wind brushes your cheek. The trees rustle ever so slightly behind you. It almost sounds like a sigh, as if nature itself is exhaling something it's held in all day. You wonder how often you hold your own breath out of habit, out of trying to get everything just right. You think about how long it took you to speak that wish, how long it lived in you, quiet and unattended, waiting for the right kind of night. And this night is the right kind, not because anything special is happening, but because you're here, and that changes everything. You rest your chin on your knees. Fireflies blink nearby, tiny floating punctuations on the silence. One hovers near your hand. You stay still, offering no fear, no urgency, just presence. It drifts away again, satisfied. Isn't that all anyone wants? To be near someone who doesn't try to fix or force, but simply sees? You remember the first lantern, how it floated without resistance. And now this second one follows. The space between them small but growing. You wonder if wishes ever find each other out there, if they link arms like friends meeting after a long winter apart. And if they do they carry your hopes with them to some distant shore? Or maybe just to the stars reflected in the water? You squint at the ripples, not because you're searching for meaning, but because something deep inside you stirs. It's like a door creaks open, not loudly, not all at once, just a crack, just enough. You feel, in this moment, that it's okay to want again, not with desperation, but with softness, with that kind of quiet hunger that doesn't demand, but invites. There's a peace that comes with that, a peace not born from perfection, but from permission, permission to begin again, to say, maybe this time. You wrap your arms around yourself, not because you're cold, but because you suddenly feel tender, like the kind of person who just remembered they have a heart capable of lighting up. The lake reflects both lanterns now, two specks of gentle gold drifting farther, still close enough to trace their glow. You notice how they never move in a straight line. They bob, they circle, they wander just a little, like dreams adjusting to the wind. Maybe that's the lesson tonight, that not everything has to be linear. That detours don't mean you're lost. You watch until the second lantern joins the first in the hush of the horizon. And you think, this, too, is progress. What if every wish we let go quietly finds its place? Not the place we expect, but the place we need? And what if, just maybe, the lake doesn't take them away at all, but holds them for safekeeping? You glance back at the stack of lanterns, each one a story waiting to unfold, and you feel the gentle tug of curiosity. What would the next one say? The third lantern feels a little heavier. Not physically, it weighs no more than the others, but something inside it tugs at your chest. Like a thread that's been waiting quietly, gently, for its turn to be pulled. You hold it for a while before doing anything. Let your fingers rest along the soft seams of the paper. It's creased, but not broken, bent, but still intact, much like you. The lake stretches before you again, quiet as ever. Its glassy surface carries no judgment, only reflection, the kind that doesn't ask you to explain, only invites you to notice. You lean forward slightly, candle in hand, and for a second your own reflection flickers in the water, shadowy, uncertain, not the version of you show the world, but the one that stays up late, wondering things you never say aloud. The flame touches wick, and it catches with a sigh, like breath held too long finally let go. You think of someone, maybe a friend who's drifted, a version of love you outgrew, or perhaps a version of yourself you had to leave behind, even if it felt like letting go of a limb. This lantern is for grief, not the kind with sobs and sharp edges, but the quiet kind, the one that hums low in your bones when a certain song plays, or when laughter echoes from a room you don't belong in anymore. You whisper, I miss what I never got to say goodbye to. And there it is, a simple truth, weightless and dense all at once. You set the lantern down. Let the water hold it. Let the current decide. It floats more slowly than the others. As if reluctant, you watch it wobble before it finds balance. And you wonder, is that how healing works? Unsteady at first, then graceful with time? Some say time heals all wounds. But maybe healing isn't about erasing scars. It's about lighting a lantern so the darkness isn't quite so thick. There's something beautiful in that, in acknowledging pain without letting it define you. You wrap your arms around your knees again. The night air settles deeper, cooler now, like it's aware of what you've let go, like it's leaning in to offer comfort, not with words, but with stillness. You think about how long you've carried that grief, tucked under your smile, between the lines of your to-do lists. Sometimes you wonder what life might have looked like if you'd made different choices, if you'd held on longer, or let go sooner. But tonight, there's no need for that kind of math. No need to count regrets or measure worth by the turns you didn't take. The lantern glows on the lake, joining the others, not ahead, not behind, just exactly where it needs to be. You feel something loosen in your chest, not entirely gone, but no longer clenched. A dragonfly lands briefly near your foot, silent and shimmering. It stays for only a second, but you watch it like it's a message, a reminder that fleeting moments can still be meaningful. What if peace doesn't come all at once, but in flickers? What if grace is something that arrives slowly, like mist curling over a quiet lake? You exhale again, slower this time, the kind of breath that makes space. It's easy to think healing needs grand gestures, but maybe it's as simple as being here, present with your feelings and letting a lantern carry them just a little further away from shore. The trees rustle once more behind you. It feels less like background noise and more like applause. Soft and subtle, not for accomplishment, but for honesty. You glance again at the 3 lanterns out there now. They don't race, they don't compete, they just are, and that feels enough. Maybe you're starting to understand. Progress doesn't have to be visible to be real. There's a lesson in how the lanterns never rush, how they move with whatever the lake gives them, wind, current, stillness. You wonder, what if you lived more like that, responding to the moment, rather than resisting it? It's not an answer you expect to arrive tonight, but even wondering feels like forward motion. A star twinkles above, reflected in the water below. For a moment, it's impossible to tell which is more real. You reach out, finger hovering just above the lake's surface, and though you don't touch it, the ripples find you anyway. Like memories, like healing, like peace when you stop chasing it. You lean back slightly, body finding a rhythm with the breath of the night. You think of the version of you who first arrived here, earlier in the evening, carrying a mind cluttered with shoulds and if-onlys. That version still exists, but now, so does this one. The one learning to let go. You place a hand on your chest, feeling your heartbeat, slow, steady, present. You don't need to rush toward the next lantern. You sit in this moment instead. Maybe that's what grief teaches us best, the value of pausing. You watch the 3rd lantern fade softly into the distance, its flame still holding on. Even as the night grows darker, it doesn't fight the dark. It simply glows within it. So can you. The 4th lantern feels different in your hands, lighter somehow. Not in weight but in meaning. It doesn't pull you into memory the way the last one did. Instead, it nudges you forward, like a quiet whisper behind your ear saying, "There's more waiting." You run your thumb along its edge, and the paper crinkles softly. The flickering candle waits to be lit, but you don't rush. Something about this one asks for patience. The lake is still, almost unnaturally so, like it's holding its breath alongside you. The night air brushes gently against your skin, as if encouraging you to pay attention to this moment. This breath, this beat of your heart, this lantern, you realize, is for dreams, not the loud, shouted from the rooftop kind, but the shy, half-written wishes you've tucked away in quiet corners of your mind, the maybe one day dreams. The ones you barely let yourself say aloud. You wonder why we often treat our own dreams like fragile things. Like they're glass birds perched on branches too thin to hold them. You wonder what made you start hiding them. Was it fear of failure? Or the quiet hum of someone else's doubt whispered over your shoulder? You lean forward and light the candle. The flame sputters once, then steadies, as if deciding it's safe to burn. "May I remember what still stirs in me?" You whisper, and the lantern seems to respond, its soft glow swelling with your breath. You place it gently onto the water and watch as it begins its silent drift, carried by the invisible paths of current and time. Funny, how dreams and lanterns share that. They both move best when released. You think of a dream you once had. Maybe it was starting something that scared you, or stepping into a space that didn't yet exist for you. A version of life where your spirit had more room to stretch. Maybe you didn't chase it, or maybe you did, and it didn't unfold the way you imagined. But still, there it is, flickering in the lantern, refusing to be forgotten. Some say dreams expire with age, but maybe dreams just change shape, becoming softer but no less real. Maybe they become lanterns, quiet things that still ask to be seen. You smile, just a little. It's not regret you feel, it's curiosity. A gentle ache, yes, but also a sense of wonder. Like opening a journal and finding something beautiful you once wrote and forgot to believe. What if your dreams aren't gone? What if they're just waiting for you to remember how to want again? The thought lingers, warm like the glow on your face. As the lantern drifts, a breeze stirs the water just enough to ripple the reflection. You notice how the light bends and reforms. Never breaking, only adapting. Like you, like the way you've shifted around life's unexpected turns. Recalibrating, reimagining. A frog croaks softly in the distance, and the sound makes you smile. It's such a small thing, but it reminds you that life continues around you. The forest, the lake, the stars, all holding space for you without asking anything in return. You lie back for a moment, the grass beneath you slightly damp but welcoming. You watch the sky now, not just the water, and see constellations blinking down like old friends. You wonder if one of those stars has watched you all your life, quietly cheering you on from above. What if you were never truly alone in your dreaming? What if even in your quietest moments, something unseen was rooting for you? The fourth lantern drifts farther now, joining its siblings in that slow, glowing parade, and as you watch, something shifts in your chest, not urgency, but readiness, a gentle willingness to try again, to believe again. It's not about chasing, it's about allowing, about making space for hope without needing guarantees. You sit up and brush the grass from your arms. You think of someone, maybe a younger version of yourself, who once dreamed fearlessly. What would they think if they saw you now? You hope they'd be proud, not because everything turned out perfectly, but because you're still here, still dreaming, even if only in flickers. The lantern, now nearly a shimmer in the distance, reminds you of something. Not every wish is meant to come true. Some are meant to remind you that you're alive, that your heart still stirs, that you haven't gone numb to wonder. That alone is worth celebrating. A dragonfly returns, maybe the same one as before. It hovers over the lake, dipping close to the fourth lantern. For a second, you imagine it carrying your wish on its wings, scattering it into 1,000 new possibilities you haven't even imagined yet. The world is wide, the night is long, and somewhere within it, the things you still long for might be quietly making their way toward you. You take another breath, deep and slow. You're not chasing dreams tonight. You're releasing them, gently, with reverence, letting them go so they can breathe. So you can breathe. You whisper a thank you, not to anyone in particular, just to the moment, to the lake, to the part of you that chose to light the candle instead of leaving it dark. The breeze picks up again, and with it, your spirit lifts a little, lighter, like the lantern, like a truth you're finally ready to hold. You watch as the lantern fades into the curve of the night, joining the constellation of floating hopes, and you sit quietly, grateful for the silence, the space, the softness of this still unfolding evening. No answers, no rush, just presence, just one more breath before the next lantern. You don't reach for the next lantern right away. Instead, you sit in the hush that the fourth one left behind. That rare kind of silence that feels like it's holding you, not avoiding you. The night has deepened. The stars seem more confident now, shining a little brighter, like they've decided you've earned their attention. When your fingers finally touch the fifth lantern, it's cooler than the others. The paper feels smooth and unblemished, like fresh snow or a blank page. You instinctively hold it close, sensing this one isn't about memory or dreaming, but about forgiveness. Not the dramatic kind with speeches and final chapters. This lantern is about the quieter, more complicated forgiveness, the one you owe yourself. You trace a slow circle on the paper, letting your breath fall into rhythm with the stillness around you. Somewhere in the trees, an owl calls out once, soft and distant. You don't need to see it to know it's watching. It always is. You close your eyes. Somewhere deep within you, there's a moment you haven't quite let go of. Maybe it's a decision you wish you had made differently. A reaction you still replay sometimes, wondering if it changed everything. Or maybe it's a season where you drifted from yourself, quietly, without even noticing. You've carried it like a stone in your pocket, not heavy enough to break you, but always there, always. But tonight, by the lake, in the glow of flickering candlelight and the quiet acceptance of the stars, you wonder, what if you don't need to keep punishing yourself to prove you've grown? What if the lesson has already sunk deep into your bones, and what's left is just habit, the old echo of self-blame? You light the lantern, and it flares gently to life. May I forgive the versions of me that didn't know better? You murmur, and something in your chest unwinds just a little. You remember being hard on yourself, for not being strong enough, or fast enough, or wise enough, for trusting the wrong people, for staying too long, for leaving too soon. But what if, just maybe, you were doing the best you could with what you had? What if that version of you, stumbling forward in the dark, was still worthy of compassion? The lantern doesn't judge. It glows with a kind of steady acceptance, the kind you rarely offer yourself. You lower it onto the water, and as it begins to drift, there's a catch in your throat. Not sadness, exactly, more like a release. A letting go of a weight you didn't even realize you'd adapted to carrying. You watch it float gently toward the others. Its light a little steadier than the rest, like it's anchoring something important. Not everything that floats away needs to be forgotten. Some things are forgiven and remembered at the same time. Like yourself, there's something comforting about the idea that you can make peace with your own story. That it doesn't have to be rewritten, only held more gently. The fifth lantern ripples along the water's surface, and you think of all the things you've quietly forgiven in others. The second chances you've handed out without question. The grace you've extended, even when you were hurt. What if you're allowed to give that same grace to yourself? Some say forgiveness is about letting someone off the hook. But maybe, for you, it's about letting yourself off the hook you built from, should have known better, and wasn't enough. Maybe the hook was never yours to hang from. A soft wind rustles through the tall reeds nearby, their stalks brushing each other like old friends murmuring secrets. The lake accepts your lantern without a ripple of resistance. You lie back again, and the stars blink quietly above you. They've seen your missteps. They've watched you falter and rise, again and again, and still, they shine. That thought makes you smile. Just barely. You think about how the moon pulls at the tides but never scolds them for coming in crooked. The water never apologizes for rising and falling, it just does. And it's still beautiful, still necessary. Maybe you are, too. Your breath deepens as the lantern becomes a soft dot in the distance. You think of someone you hurt, unintentionally. You think of someone who hurt you. And then, most unexpectedly, you think of someone you never quite forgave. The you who didn't have all the answers. And in this moment, that version of you feels closer than ever. You picture them standing beside you now, barefoot in the grass, staring at the lake with wide, uncertain eyes. You want to take their hand, tell them it's okay, that mistakes were made, yes, but survival, growth, and softening happened too. Maybe that's enough. No, maybe that's everything. A cricket begins its quiet song, unbothered by the darkness. Its sound weaves through your thoughts like gentle punctuation, reminding you that life hums on. Even in the places you've paused, you exhale slowly and sit upright again, watching the fifth lantern blur into the glow of the others. It doesn't disappear, it joins. It belongs. Forgiveness, you think, isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about acknowledging what did, and choosing to stop holding it like a shield. You glance at the remaining lanterns. There are many still to come, but something in you has shifted. You're not here to fix yourself. You're here to remember yourself, to hold each piece like a sacred stone and decide which ones still need carrying. You whisper a soft promise to your past self, the one still learning how to forgive, I won't keep you out in the cold anymore. The water shimmers, and the night leans in. Warm and watchful, you let your fingers brush the grass again, grounding yourself to the earth. The moment, the gentle truth that maybe healing isn't loud or dramatic. Maybe it's just a lantern let go under a quiet sky. The sixth lantern feels different the moment your hands graze it. It's slightly crumpled at one corner, as if someone once held it too tightly, afraid it might fly away before they were ready. You turn it gently in your palms, smoothing the paper with careful fingers. It doesn't mind the wrinkles. It simply waits. Tonight, the lake holds your attention in a quieter way. The surface, silvered by moonlight, looks like glass stretched across breath. Nothing stirs, not even the breeze. You glance upward. Clouds have drifted closer now, thin, translucent veils that hush the stars without dimming them entirely. It feels like the sky is whispering, "Slow down." And you do. This lantern is about patience. Not the patience you perform for others, smiling while tapping your foot under the table, pretending not to mind the delay. This is about real, internal patience, the kind that waits not just for time to pass, but for you to grow into your own unfolding. You sit back, the crickets still composing their lullaby, and think of all the times you've rushed yourself, all the invisible deadlines you created, milestones, checklists, expectations you stitched onto your chest like merit badges that never quite sparkled the way you hoped. There's a voice in your head you know too well. It says, "You should have gotten farther by now," or "Everyone else seems ahead." You've believed that voice before, too many times. But tonight, with the soft weight of the sixth lantern in your lap, you hear a quieter voice, one you've ignored for a long time. It says, "You're not late, you're becoming." You don't have to sprint toward peace. Some gardens grow slowly, some stars take longer to arrive. You light the lantern. "May I trust in the pace of my own path?" You whisper, the words rising like mist from a warm cup, and they feel true in a way that doesn't demand applause, just silence and space. The lantern's flame flickers to life. You watch it pulse gently, like it's breathing with you. What if the waiting seasons weren't empty after all? What if they were doing their work beneath the surface, like roots pushing quietly through dark soil? You think of that one time you paused a project you loved because fear crept in, dressed as practicality, or the time you delayed a move, unsure if it was brave or foolish. The world kept spinning, but something in you whispered, "Not yet," and maybe that whisper was wisdom, not weakness. The sixth lantern reminds you, not every answer arrives on demand. Some truths need time to bloom. You can't rush a sunrise. The lake accepts your offering as you place the lantern on the water. It sways gently, then steadies itself, as if reassuring you. Balance doesn't mean stillness, it means allowing the motion. You wonder if a life lived slowly might actually be the richest kind. One where you notice the way shadows shift across your walls during afternoon light. One where you let friendships simmer instead of boil. One where healing comes in layers, not leaps. Some say ambition is about acceleration, but maybe the most radical ambition is to stay present, even when the world tells you to move faster. You smile, remembering a time when you thought success meant arriving at a particular age with everything sorted. And yet, here you are, unsorted, maybe, but deeply more aware of your edges and soft spots than ever. And there's beauty in that. The sixth lantern floats forward, catching up to the others. You watch them gently bob along like a string of memories moving downstream. No one's in a rush. There's no finish line here, just a lake cradling light. You think about people who walked away because you weren't where they needed you to be. And maybe, just maybe, they were walking their own timing. And maybe, so were you. Patience, it turns out, is not passive. It's choosing to believe that the things that matter won't pass you by just because they take longer to arrive. A soft rustle behind you, a bird adjusting its feathers. You don't turn to look. You just feel the movement and accept it as part of this moment. Like a comma in a sentence too long to finish tonight. The lantern continues to drift, finding its rhythm. You notice how the flame reflects off the water, doubling the light. Patience does that too. It reflects back at you in ways you don't expect: kindness, trust, self-love. And maybe that's what this section of your journey is all about. Not becoming someone else, but learning to wait with yourself. To stand beside your own uncertainty and say, "I'll stay here until you're ready." You think of all the time you've spent trying to be enough. And maybe that was never about speed or output, but presence. The clouds shift slightly, parting just enough to let one bold star peek through. You don't know its name, but you name it anyway. Hope. Then you whisper it, just once. Hope. It doesn't echo back. It doesn't need to. You feel the words settle into your chest like warm tea poured into your favorite cup. You brush your fingers along the grass again, grounding yourself. Still here, still whole. The lantern is far out now, its light softened by distance. It doesn't look alone. It looks assured. You take a breath, deeper this time, not because you're rushing, but because you're ready. Not for the next answer, but for the next lantern. The seventh lantern rests in your lap like a question you've never dared to ask aloud. It's lighter than the others, almost weightless, as though it carries nothing or everything. You hold it close, studying the texture of its rice paper surface, noticing how it curves delicately inward, almost as if it's listening. Some things in life feel like that, quiet companions that sit with you without needing to be filled. Tonight, the lake has grown more silver, as if it's remembering every light it has ever reflected. The surface is calm, but you can sense movement beneath it, a slow, swirling language only the moon understands. You think about the things you've never said, the truths left in the margins of conversations, the dreams that felt too fragile to speak out loud. The seventh lantern begins to hum with those silences. It's not a real sound, just a feeling in your chest, like a heartbeat you forgot to count. Some say secrets are heavy, but maybe the real weight is in carrying the belief that your truth doesn't matter. The seventh lantern asks you to challenge that. You trace its rim with your fingertip and feel a surprising warmth. Maybe from your touch, or maybe from everything this lantern has been waiting for. You recall a memory, not a loud one. Just a moment. You were sitting in a room full of people, nodding, smiling, playing your part, but inside, you were unraveling, stitch by invisible stitch. You didn't speak. You didn't want to burden anyone. But what if your voice wouldn't have been a burden? What if your truth would have been the lantern someone else needed to find their own? This is the soft lesson of the seventh lantern. There is quiet strength in vulnerability. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is whisper what you're holding inside. You light the lantern, your hands trembling just slightly. I give permission. You breathe, to speak when I need, and to be silent when I choose. There's no applause, no dramatic swell of music, just a small, steady glow that begins to lift from your hands like forgiveness. You set it gently on the water and watch as it joins the others, drifting as if carried not by the breeze, but by intention. The night air brushes your cheek, and for a second, you imagine it answering back. What if the world isn't waiting for your perfection, but your presence? You remember a journal you once kept, pages filled with half-formed thoughts, poems that didn't rhyme, declarations that ended in scribbled out lines. At the time, you thought they were silly, incomplete, but now you wonder, maybe they weren't meant to be finished. Maybe they were just meant to be witnessed by you. A firefly dances across your vision, leaving a streak of gold in the dark. You follow it with your eyes until it disappears among the trees. A flicker, a moment, and then gone. And yet, it was beautiful. So many parts of you are like that, fleeting, hidden, glorious in their transience. You wrap your arms around your knees and rest your chin gently. The lake continues its quiet rhythm, ripples spreading, then dissolving, as if nothing ever disturbed the peace. But you know better. Even the softest light changes everything. What if your softness wasn't something to harden or hide? What if it was the very thing that makes you real? You think of someone you once loved, a friend, a kindred spirit. The connection never had closure. Just a slow fade. No fight, no farewell, just distance. Sometimes, the unsaid things echo louder than the spoken ones. And yet, you're still here, still breathing, still capable of loving, even when the words don't find their way to air. The lantern flickers on the water. Now among the others, its light isn't brighter, but it feels truer, like it's telling its story without shouting. You smile softly, thinking of how many people carry silent chapters, entire volumes written in their hearts that no one will ever fully read. And yet, they keep walking, loving, living. That's grace. The lantern drifts under a low-hanging willow branch. You watch its light ripple through the leaves, painting them gold for a heartbeat before slipping past. You wonder what parts of you haven't been given a name yet. Not flaws, not traits, just truths, gentle, raw, unfiltered pieces that long to be honored, not for what they produce, but for simply being yours. You breathe in slowly. Tonight, your breath feels different, not rushed, not held, just free. The moon has shifted slightly. It's no longer overhead, but tilting westward. Time passes here not by ticking clocks, but by the changing hue of the night sky. You whisper something to yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not for anyone else, but it's yours, and that, in itself, is a kind of lantern. The light continues to drift, soft, undemanding, but sure of itself. And you realize, not every light is meant to dazzle. Some are meant to steady you. This lantern carries your quiet truths now, the ones you've been gentle with, the ones you've feared, and the ones you're just beginning to explore. And they're safe here. A breeze stirs again, cool and clean. It brushes the hair at the nape of your neck like a kind touch. A reassurance. Some say we are made of stardust. Others say we are made of story. But maybe we are simply made of moments like this, where truth meets silence. And silence allows space to bloom. The lantern moves further out. Its glow smaller now but no less important. Like a star added to a private constellation you're building. One lantern at a time. You place a hand over your heart, feeling it beat, unapologetically, continuously, without needing permission. The seventh lantern drifts into the current. You let it go, and for once, you don't feel the urge to follow it. You just sit, and let that be enough. You take the eighth lantern with both hands, cradling it like a memory still too tender to name. The paper is tinted with a soft lilac hue, like dusk just before the stars begin to appear. It almost glows on its own, as if the light inside is already awake, just waiting for your signal to rise. The lake hums with patience, still and expectant, like a friend who doesn't ask for anything except your company. You've been thinking about time lately, not in hours or years, but in those peculiar pauses that seem to stretch and fold, a lingering gaze. A word caught in your throat, the exact second you knew something was changing, but couldn't stop it. The eighth lantern is about timing, but not the kind that's counted, the kind that's felt, the kind that asks you to trust the rhythm even when the path looks still. Some say everything happens for a reason, but maybe things happen with their own reasons, and we only understand them when we're ready. You run your fingers along the edge of the lantern, tracing its seam like a scar that healed quietly. There's beauty in things that hold together, even after being pulled apart. You recall the summer you missed the train, and somehow ended up at a little cafe tucked behind a bookstore. You never would have found it otherwise. That afternoon, you wrote your name in a journal left on the windowsill, along with a quote that wasn't yours but felt like it had been waiting for you. Sometimes, delay is the universe's way of saying, you're not lost. Just early. You never went back. But you've carried that line with you like a secret. What if life has been weaving its thread through all your almosts and maybes? Waiting for the exact moment you'd be able to understand what they meant. The eighth lantern whispers that sometimes, you must be still long enough to hear the echo of your own readiness. You breathe out, slow and low, and light the lantern. The flame doesn't flare, it breathes, like you do now. Quiet, alive, intentional. You don't make a wish this time. Instead, you offer a promise. I will stop rushing what needs time to bloom. The paper shifts slightly in your hands, as if it heard you. You remember a person who once told you that patience was just disguised faith. You didn't fully understand them then. You nodded, smiled, went on with your plans. But now, watching the lantern float on still water, you wonder if that was their way of gifting you something you'd only unpack later. You smile to yourself, soft, lopsided. It feels like finding a seashell in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn in years. A quiet reminder that something once mattered, and maybe still does. The lantern glides into the lake. Unlike the others, it doesn't drift immediately. It lingers close, circling slowly, as if unsure whether it's time to leave. And maybe that's the lesson here. Some things take a little longer to let go. You watch it spin in place, catching reflections of other lanterns like little memories bumping into each other. And still, it doesn't rush away, it just exists. You lean back on your hands, feeling the cool earth beneath your palms. There's a comfort in grounding yourself while watching something rise. A dragonfly darts across the water, skimming so fast it's gone before your eyes can follow. Not everything can be caught. Not every moment wants to be captured. And yet, here you are, catching the stillness, holding it without clutching. Some say timing is everything. But maybe it's not about waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe it's about realizing the moment you're in is already enough. You close your eyes for just a second, not to sleep, but to listen, and in that soft dark, you hear it, your own breath, in rhythm with the water, with the wind, with something older than clocks. The eighth lantern finally starts to drift. It moves without urgency, like a slow goodbye you're not sad about, because it came exactly when it was supposed to. You let your shoulders relax, noticing how much tension lives in the parts of you forget to notice. Behind the knees, the jaw, the space between thoughts. This is what presence feels like. Not perfect, just patient. You recall a childhood moment, waiting for a seed to grow in a paper cup by the windowsill. You'd peek in every morning, expecting a sprout. Nothing happened for days. Then one morning, it was just there, fragile, green, alive. That was your first lesson in slow magic. The lantern drifts past a reflection of the moon, and for a breath, it looks like the two are touching. Light meeting light, a moment that no camera could catch. But your memory does. You sit in that feeling for a while, not trying to define it, just letting it hold you. What if the most beautiful parts of your life won't be the ones that happened fast, but the ones that unfolded when you stopped asking how long it would take? The water accepts the lantern gently, guiding it onward like an old friend leading you through a dark hallway with a soft hand. You don't know where it will end up, but for the first time, you don't need to, because you've just learned something priceless. You are not behind. Your path is not late. You're not supposed to be anywhere but here. You watch until the light of the eighth lantern blends in with the others, no longer just yours, but part of something shared. You press your palm over your chest again, not for comfort, just to say, I feel you. The sky has deepened now, a darker blue, kissed with stars, the kind of night that makes you wonder if dreams have weight or wings. The lake holds it all, the lanterns, the sky, the rhythm of things becoming exactly what they need to be. And you, too, are becoming, slowly, softly, in perfect time. The ninth lantern is wrapped in parchment the color of pale honey. Its surface glimmers faintly beneath the moonlight, almost as if it's been soaking in light all evening, waiting for its moment to shine back. You lift it carefully, noticing how warm it feels in your hands, like it's been holding a story. One that's both old and yours. You sit up a little straighter, stretching the small of your back as you glance around. The lake, by now, has become a canvas of gliding lights, each lantern casting its reflection like a dream writing itself onto water. The night has grown deeper, but not darker, the kind of depth that makes you feel safe, as though you've reached a place where the world slows down just enough for your heart to catch up. This lantern, you realize, is about forgiveness, not the kind you give to others first, but the kind you never knew you needed to give yourself. You remember moments, small ones, that linger like dust motes in corners. Things you said too sharply, choices you didn't make, times you tried so hard to be everything, but forgot to be kind to the person carrying it all, yourself. Some say healing begins when you say, "I forgive you," out loud. But maybe healing truly begins when you whisper it inward, without expecting applause, without needing to be understood. You run your finger along the fold of the lantern's edge, and feel it catch, just slightly. A tiny imperfection, like a healed crack. You don't try to fix it. You simply notice it, you honor it, because not everything broken needs to be hidden. Sometimes, the cracks are where the truth finally breathes. You take a slow breath and let your eyes trace the dance of light across the lake. The lanterns ahead float like memories released, some closer, some already part of the horizon. What if forgiveness isn't about forgetting or condoning, but about loosening your grip on the anchor that keeps you stuck in waters you've already crossed? You remember a time when you kept replaying an old moment like it was a movie scene that might end differently if you watched it one more time. But it never did, and it never will. Still, you kept watching. But not tonight. Tonight, you let that reel fall silent. You let your past sit beside you. Not behind you, not something to outrun, but something to soften toward. The flame flickers gently now. Ready, you bring the lantern to your chest, not for drama, just to feel it close. You murmur into it, low and real, "I forgive myself for not knowing what I didn't know." It's a simple offering, and it's everything. The lantern glows a little brighter, as if recognizing your sincerity. You smile, not wide, not loud, just the kind of smile that feels like it comes from the part of you that still believes in softness. A breeze rolls in, light and cool, brushing your skin like a quiet reminder that you're still here, still growing, still enough. You set the lantern into the water, watching as it glides slowly forward, weaving past the earlier ones like a traveler unburdened. There's no resistance, no tension, just movement. You think of how often we carry guilt like a backpack full of stones, convinced it's our penance. But maybe the lesson was never to carry it forever. Maybe it was to learn from the weight. Then set it down gently. You once told someone you were sorry for not being who they needed. But tonight, you say it to yourself too. And add a second line you never thought you could say. "But I'm learning to be who I need." The lantern flickers at the edge of the reeds, then catches a current and flows out toward the others, joining them in a soft congregation of light. It doesn't stand out, and it doesn't need to. Not every healing needs a spotlight. Some are meant to float away in silence, free and unseen. You lean back again, this time letting your body rest fully on the earth. The soil is cool beneath you, cradling your spine, your shoulders, your heart. Up above, the stars blink like old friends keeping watch. You wonder how many wishes they've heard, how many regrets they've forgiven without a word. There's a strange peace in letting yourself off the hook, in realizing that grace isn't something you earn, it's something you eventually learn to accept. You let your hand fall into the grass beside you, fingers curling around a small wildflower, its petals trembling slightly in the breeze. You don't pick it, you just feel it there, alive beside you, Some say we bloom again only after we break. But maybe, sometimes, we simply bloom again because we rest. The ninth lantern is no longer in sight. But in its place, there's a sense of quiet space, an opening where once there was pressure. You feel it, not like a dramatic shift, but like a sigh you didn't know you were holding finally being released. What if that's what growth sounds like? Not triumph, just relief. And in this moment, you allow it, the exhale, the untensing, the soft truth that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy of peace. You whisper a thank you to the night, to the lake, to the version of yourself that brought you here. The one who made it through even when it wasn't graceful. The one who still shows up, maybe tired, maybe chipped, but still trying. The one who finally said, I'm sorry, and also, it's okay. Because it is. It really is. The 10th lantern rests beside you, quieter than the others. Its frame is delicate, almost translucent, like it's been listening all along. You don't rush to light it. Instead, you sit in its presence, letting the hush of the late night wrap itself around you. You notice how the wind has shifted, no longer brushing through the grass but moving across the water in wide, slow waves, the kind of breeze that doesn't hurry anything. It just wanders, like it's searching for someone who needs to breathe a little deeper. Maybe that someone is you. This lantern, you realize, is for the dreams you never spoke aloud. The ones you tucked behind responsibility and routine. The ones you shelved with quiet, some days, that turned into years. You hold the lantern in both hands, like you're holding something fragile. And in a way, you are. Because dreams age differently when they're hidden too long. Not dead, just waiting, like seeds beneath winter frost. Unsure if spring will ever come. Some say if it really mattered, you'd have pursued it already. But maybe they don't understand what it means to carry other people's expectations like a map you never drew. Maybe you've always known the way, but the road required more courage than applause. You lean forward, elbows on knees, and stare at the lantern's soft corners. The paper catches moonlight, glowing like the inside of a secret. And you wonder, what if it's not too late? The thought startles you, not because it's wild, but because it's tender. Hope often is. You think of the time you sketched a story in the margins of a math notebook. Or the night you stayed up just to feel what silence could sound like when it belonged only to you. Or the weekend you planned a trip you never took, but still remember in detail. That was you, dreaming in between. You smile at the memory, not regretful, just aware, like seeing a childhood friend across a room, older now, but still carrying something familiar in their eyes. You touch the side of the lantern and speak softly to it. Not like casting a wish into a well, but like making a quiet promise, I haven't forgotten you. And the lantern seems to warm in response. Not magically, just gently, as if acknowledging that even dreams, when heard, exhale a little. There's a rustling in the trees nearby, a deer, maybe, or the breeze shifting direction. You don't check. Some things are meant to stay soft around the edges. You sit with the lantern a bit longer before lighting it, watching the tiny flame curl into life like a breath drawn in after a long silence. You think about how often we wait for perfect timing. But sometimes, maybe the moment finds us only when we finally stop demanding certainty. What if starting is more important than being ready? The lantern, now lit, glows with a hue you hadn't seen in the others, a pale amber tinged with silver. Like the color of possibility. You carry it to the water's edge, careful not to let the flame falter. The grass here is damp from dew, and your toes sink slightly into the earth. You like the grounding feeling. It reminds you that no matter how far your dreams might float, you're still allowed to feel rooted. You pause just before releasing it. Whatever shape you take, you whisper, I'll still be proud I tried. The lantern slides into the water with surprising ease. Like it's been waiting its whole life to do just that. It doesn't race ahead, it drifts, tracing soft ripples across the glassy surface. And you stay there, kneeling at the edge, watching it go. You feel no need to follow. Some dreams are meant to be witnessed first, so they remember they're real. The night has taken on a lullaby tone now. You can hear the distant call of a loon, low and long, somewhere behind you. Crickets continue their midnight symphony. You recognize the rhythm. It matches your heartbeat. There's a question that rises, not intrusive, just curious. What would your life look like if you let yourself want again? You sit with that, not answer it, just sit with it, because wanting is vulnerable, and vulnerable is brave. You lay back on the grass once more, your arm resting where the lantern had been, as if the warmth still lingers there. Maybe it does. Some say your dreams expire if left alone too long. But maybe they evolve. Maybe they wait for the version of you strong enough to carry them with tenderness instead of pressure. The clouds above shift, parting just enough for a stretch of stars to peer through. You spot one streaking quietly across the sky. No one around to witness it but you. And maybe that's enough. You don't close your eyes yet. You want to remember this. How it felt to name something you never dared to say out loud. How it felt to want without shame. How it felt to imagine, even if only for a moment, that your life could unfold in a shape entirely your own. You sigh, long and light, and roll onto your side. The lake glimmers quietly. The lanterns continue their journey, joining the silver thread of light stretching across the surface like a path drawn by moonlight. Your 10th lantern follows behind. Its glow steady, not loud, not desperate, just real. And that's enough. That's more than enough. The 11th lantern rests in your hands like a memory returning after years of stillness. It's shaped a little differently, slightly taller, with creases that look like smile lines. You notice a small imperfection on the corner, a smudge of color where the paper's been touched too many times. Maybe by someone before you, maybe by you, a long time ago. There's a sense of familiarity here. You exhale, the kind that feels like brushing dust off something you didn't know you missed. This lantern is for forgiveness. Not the dramatic kind that comes in movie endings or final chapters, but the quiet, slow kind. The one that grows from within when no one's watching. The kind that doesn't ask for recognition, only relief. You sit with the lantern in your lap, listening. The breeze has softened again. Now just a whisper threading through reeds and over your shoulder like an old friend leaning in. You think about all the people you've been in your lifetime. The child who laughed too loud. The teen who held grudges out of fear. The adult who tried so hard to be good that they forgot to be kind to themselves. Some say we carry every version of ourselves like a shadow. But maybe it's more like an orchestra, each version with their own voice, playing a different melody, some out of tune, some too quiet to hear, but all part of the same song. You smile, just slightly, because sometimes you hear them, don't you? The echoes of who you were, the choices you made out of confusion or love or desperation. And you wince a little, but you don't look away. That's the thing about forgiveness. It doesn't erase, it just makes room. Room to breathe, room to hold both the mistake and the lesson in the same hand. You close your eyes for a moment and picture a conversation you'll never have. Not because the person is gone, but because the words wouldn't land the way you need them to. Still, you say them here, softly. I forgive you for not knowing better. I forgive me for not asking sooner. The lantern flickers a little, as if recognizing something important. You open your eyes and trace the rim of it with your finger. The paper is worn, but still strong, like people who've weathered storms and somehow found a way to laugh again. And you wonder, what would it feel like to carry less? To let go not as a grand gesture, but as a kindness to yourself? You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, not out of hatred, just silence. A drifting apart that was never named, only felt. You used to carry that gap like a weight. But now, holding this lantern, You realize maybe it's enough to wish them peace without reopening the wound. Maybe forgiveness doesn't require closeness, just release. You rise slowly, holding the lantern like an offering. The grass is cool under your feet. You don't rush. Each step to the water is deliberate, like you're walking back into yourself. At the edge, the moonlight stretches long across the lake, shimmering in soft waves. It looks like it's making space for your lantern. You crouch down and speak again. Not to anyone in particular. Maybe to your younger self. Maybe to the silence between you and someone you once loved. It's okay. You did your best. You light the lantern, and the flame catches quickly. A golden glow unfolds within it, warm like a candle held between palms on a cold night. You place it on the water and watch as it floats away. Not the fastest, not the brightest, but steady. The breeze catches it and nudges it forward, gently, like a hand on a shoulder saying, "Go on now." You stay at the shore, not in sadness, but in stillness. There's something sacred about letting go without needing closure. Some say forgiveness has to be earned, but maybe it only has to be felt. Maybe healing begins when you stop demanding a different past. You look up at the stars again. One blinks a little brighter than the rest. Like it's listening. You whisper to it, "Because why not? I'm trying." And it feels like something hears you. The water glows now with the trail of lanterns, each one bobbing in rhythm, each one a soft echo of a heart that dared to speak. Your 11th joins them, drifting beside the dream from earlier, beside the courage you didn't think you had in Section 4, beside the laughter that lit the 3rd. You lie back again, the grass cradling you. The air smells like lake and dusk and something green and clean. A thought passes through, as gentle as a sigh. What if you didn't have to be perfect to deserve peace? You let that thought settle, and in the quiet that follows, you feel it, lightness, like something inside you just unclenched. And you smile, because sometimes that's all you need. Not answers, just a little more space to breathe. The 12th lantern waits beside you, a pale shade of lavender, with tiny silver specks dusted across its paper like stars scattered by accident. You run your fingers over the delicate folds, and it feels like holding the hush of twilight, the moment when the world exhales just before night settles fully in. This one is for patience, not the kind you practice in traffic or while waiting in a long line, but the deep, soul-level patience that asks you to trust in the timing of things you can't control. The kind that whispers, "Not yet, but soon," even when you want to scream. Why not now? You take a long, quiet breath, in through your nose, out through your lips like steam curling off tea in winter. All around you, the lake hums its gentle lullaby. Crickets begin their steady chorus again, and the breeze returns with its soft fingers combing through your hair. Somewhere far off, an owl calls once, then falls silent, like it was just checking in. You think about all the moments in life you tried to rush. All the times you forced yourself forward because stillness felt too much like failure. But you're starting to see now, some things unfold only when they're ready. Like petals, or peace, or trust. You smile, a little ruefully, remembering how many times you asked the universe for a sign and grew frustrated when it didn't arrive on your schedule. And yet, later, somehow, always later, you realized the answer had been growing quietly under the surface the whole time. Just not in the way you expected. Some say patience is weakness, that you should chase every dream, every answer, without pause. But maybe patience is strength with soft edges. Maybe it's the art of holding space when everything inside you begs to leap forward. You look down at the lantern and think of something that's still forming in your life. Maybe it's a dream, or a relationship, or a version of yourself you haven't met yet. It doesn't have a name, but you feel it just out of reach, like the taste of a word on the tip of your tongue. You wonder what it would feel like to stop grasping, and instead, to trust that it will arrive when the time is right. The lantern glows as you light it, soft lavender shifting to gold as the flame flickers to life. You don't rush, you hold it a while, letting the warmth seep into your palms. And you remember a garden. You were younger then, maybe not in years, but in faith. You planted seeds, and for days, weeks, you saw nothing. You poked at the dirt, maybe even thought about giving up. But then, one quiet morning, a green shoot cracked the soil. Not because you demanded it, but because the earth knew when. That memory lingers as you kneel at the water's edge and release the lantern. It drifts slowly, deliberately, not as quick as some, but somehow more certain, like it knows exactly when and where it's meant to go. You sit back and watch, wrapping your arms around your knees. The lake reflects everything now, each lantern a quiet reminder that wishes are alive, even when unseen, even when the night feels too still to believe. Another breeze slips past, and with it, a question. What if the waiting is part of the becoming? You think of the people in your life who held space for you, who didn't rush you when you were finding your voice, or healing from things you couldn't name, and you wonder if you can offer yourself that same grace. You reach for a nearby reed and twirl it between your fingers, watching the soft fronds sway. Even plants know how to bend without breaking. Above, a cloud drifts lazily across the moon, casting shifting shadows on the water. You trace the ripples with your eyes, feeling a gentle sense of rhythm in the way everything moves without effort. It's a dance, isn't it? A dance between doing and waiting, between holding on and letting go. And you start to feel it now, the gift of being exactly where you are. Not ahead, not behind, just here. In this moment, the world feels slower, like it's leaning in with you. You place your hand on your chest, over the soft rise and fall, and whisper, maybe to the wind, maybe to yourself, I can wait, I trust the becoming. The flame in your lantern flickers as if responding, then steadies again, carried farther now by the gentle current. It moves toward the others, joining the soft procession of golden prayers making their way across the lake. You lie back again, the grass cool against your spine, and close your eyes. And for the first time in a while, you don't feel like rushing anything. Not the healing, not the hope, not the story still unfolding. Because some chapters take longer to write, some lessons grow only in moonlight, and some dreams arrive not when you chase them, but when you finally sit still long enough to receive them. You smile, and it feels like letting go of an invisible weight. The stars overhead shimmer like tiny promises, patient and constant, and in this quiet, you begin to understand. The lanterns aren't just carrying your wishes. They're teaching you how to wait for them, too. The 13th lantern rests in your lap like it's been waiting for this exact moment, not a minute sooner. Not a breath too late. It's a soft seafoam green, barely glowing until you hold it up to the sky, where the moonlight brushes its paper like a quiet blessing. This one is for healing, not the dramatic kind that arrives with trumpets and sweeping revelations, but the slow, meandering sort that comes when you finally stop pretending you're fine. The healing that hums in the background like a song only your soul remembers, gently calling you back to yourself. You sit a little straighter now, the lake beside you as still as your heartbeat, both of them listening. A dragonfly skims the water's surface. It moves in loops and dips and pauses midair, wings catching the lantern light like stained glass. And you think, for a moment, how healing doesn't follow a straight line either. Maybe that's the lesson tonight, that it's okay to loop, to dip, to pause. Some scars don't need to vanish to prove they're no longer wounds. Some memories are stitched into your spirit not to weigh you down, but to remind you of how far you've come. You run a fingertip over the edge of the lantern and let your mind wander to a place inside you that still aches. It could be something recent, a goodbye you didn't expect, or something older, like the echo of a voice that once told you you weren't enough. Maybe you believed it, maybe, on some quiet nights, you still do, but tonight, you don't run from it. You breathe into it. You treat it like a friend who's been waiting too long for your attention. What if healing begins not when pain disappears, but when you finally sit beside it? Without flinching, the lantern warms in your hands. And it's strange how the smallest light can make even your shadow feel less lonely. You glance down at the soft reflection of your face in the water, blurred, uncertain, human, beautiful anyway. Nearby, one of the earlier lanterns bobs gently on the surface, as if waiting for you to notice it again. You do, and you realize some of your past hopes are still out there. Still afloat, still shining. That's comforting, isn't it? To know that just because you set something down doesn't mean it was lost. Sometimes, it was just waiting for you to grow into the version of yourself who could carry it differently. A breeze rises and you watch the grass ripple like a whispered yes. You think back to a time you cried quietly, maybe where no one could hear, or maybe in the presence of someone who didn't know what to say. Maybe they reached out anyway, maybe they didn't. Either way, you survived, and here you are, still whole, still reaching, still worthy. You press your palm gently against the lantern's heart and whisper, "For everything I've held, and everything I'm ready to release." It feels like an invocation, like the start of a new softness inside you. Some say healing is linear, that you move from broken to whole in a series of perfect steps. But maybe it's more like this lantern, fragile, glowing, imperfect, and still rising. You strike the match, light the wick, and feel the subtle whoosh of flame catching paper. The lantern glows from the inside out, green giving way to gold. Like moss in sunlight, you carry it to the edge of the lake and pause. There's a slight mist curling at the shore now, wrapping around your ankles like the lake is trying to hold you still a little longer. You let it. There's no need to rush this goodbye. You kneel, set the lantern on the surface, and let it drift. And as it floats, you speak, softly, reverently, like a benediction. I forgive myself for not healing faster. I forgive others for not knowing how to help. I release what no longer serves me. The lantern drifts farther, joining the constellation of flickering hope across the water. And suddenly, you feel a quiet hum in your chest. A stillness that isn't empty, but full. Like something ancient inside you just exhaled. You sit down, legs tucked beneath you, and let the moment settle. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't demand to be seen. It moves through you like the wind, gentle, insistent, changing your shape even when you can't see how. And it's never too late to start. You tilt your head back to watch the stars again. There are more now, or maybe you're just finally still enough to notice them. Your fingers find a small pebble nearby, smooth and cool, and you roll it in your palm. You think, maybe you'll keep it, not as a burden, but as a reminder that even the things shaped by pressure and time can become something beautiful. The dragonfly returns, hovers near your shoulder for a moment, then disappears into the trees. You whisper another question to the breeze, not expecting an answer. What if I'm already healing, even when I don't feel it? Somewhere deep inside, the quiet voice returns, that same voice that's been with you all along. You are. You smile, because that is enough. And tonight, the lake agrees. The 14th lantern rests in your hands like an old truth you're just now beginning to remember. It's pale lavender, soft and dreamy, with petals drawn in delicate ink on its paper shell, petals that remind you of things blooming. Even in the places you thought nothing could grow again. This one is for trust. Not just the kind you offer to others, but the deeper kind, the kind you give to yourself. You trace one of the petals with your thumb, following its curl, wondering why trust sometimes feels like the most fragile thing of all. It's easy to lose and so hard to rebuild. Yet here you are, on the edge of this quiet lake, holding a lantern that asks you to believe again. Not blindly, not foolishly, but gently, like offering your hand to something that once stung and now simply asks to be held. A loon calls across the water. A long, haunting note that echoes into the mist like a question left unanswered. You don't mind the mystery of it. In fact, you welcome it. Not everything needs to make perfect sense to be meaningful. The reflection of the lantern dances in the lake, and you wonder, what would it look like if you trusted your own timing? Trusted the pauses, the detours, the people who stay without needing to be asked. Some say trust must be earned. But maybe, just maybe, there's a part of you that's already trustworthy by nature. A compass that's always known the way, even if you sometimes doubted it. You think back to a moment, perhaps long ago, when you hesitated. Maybe you didn't speak up, or maybe you trusted someone who didn't deserve it, and it left a mark. It's okay, that's part of the map now. And here's the thing. Trusting yourself again doesn't mean you never made mistakes. It means you're brave enough to keep showing up anyway. You stand and walk toward the edge, lantern in hand, feeling the earth solid beneath your feet. A moth flutters past your cheek, drawn to the soft light, dancing with it before disappearing into the hush of night. You wonder how many decisions you've made that were guided by instinct rather than logic. Some turned out beautifully. Others, well, they taught you things no textbook ever could. What if the path to trusting yourself isn't paved with perfect outcomes, but with honest attempts? The lavender glow from the lantern bathes your arms in light. It's like standing in a moment that says, you're allowed to begin again. A few reeds sway nearby, and you watch as the breeze moves through them, not harshly, not urgently, just enough, just right. That's how trust builds too. Not in grand declarations, but in quiet consistencies, in the way you get up again, the way you listen to your heart without needing a crowd to validate it, the way you pause when something doesn't feel right, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. You kneel by the shore and place the lantern on the water, watching how it bobs slightly before finding its balance. Like you do, like you've done, like you'll keep doing. I trust myself to grow. You whisper. The lantern glides forward, joining its siblings in the soft lantern galaxy you've created, each one a little prayer you were brave enough to send out into the world. Behind you, the trees rustle softly, like an applause too shy to be loud. You smile because maybe trust isn't just about believing everything will work out. Maybe it's about knowing that even if it doesn't, you'll be okay anyway. That's powerful, quietly powerful. You sit again, arms wrapped around your knees, and look across the lake, at the shimmering trail of lights that now seem to breathe in unison with you. One rises slightly, lifted by a breeze, and it looks for a second like it might take off into the sky. It doesn't, but the almost of it fills your chest with wonder. What if every time you chose to trust, even when afraid, you sent a signal to the world that you're still in it? Still trying, still soft enough to hope? That kind of vulnerability is strength in disguise. The lavender fades slowly as the lantern drifts farther out, its light dimming into the larger glow of the collective. You notice how the lake doesn't discriminate. Every lantern gets the same reflection. No matter how dim or bright, everyone belongs. You do too. You breathe in, slow and deep, and something inside you clicks. Not like a lock shutting, but like a door creaking open. You trust that version of yourself that's still becoming. You trust that the version of you who brought you here, even with the fears, even with the fumbles, did their best. And you thank them, quietly. One more dragonfly circles your lantern before veering upward, vanishing into the soft dark. A part of you goes with it. A part that says, I no longer need every answer to trust the journey. You lean back, feel the earth beneath your palms, and look up at the stars again. They seem closer tonight, or maybe it's you who's moved closer to them. Somewhere in the dark, a ripple breaks the surface of the lake. A gentle splash, a reminder. Trust doesn't mean stillness, it means presence. You're here, and you're enough. The 15th lantern lies beside you like a secret you've been saving for the right night. Its paper glows faintly gold, the color of late summer fields and stories passed down in quiet voices. You lift it slowly, feeling the warmth seep into your fingers as if the lantern remembers every wish ever whispered into its light. This one is for release. Not the letting go that feels like loss, but the kind that feels like freedom. You hold the lantern close, as if cradling a piece of yourself that no longer needs to be carried. It's strange, isn't it, how long we can cling to things we outgrew. Old guilt, old stories, old versions of ourselves that no longer speak the truth of who we are. Some say you have to burn the past to start anew. But maybe, just maybe, it's more like setting it gently on the water and watching it drift into its own kind of peace. The air tonight is cooler, as if the lake knows this is your last lantern. It wraps around you like a shawl, not chilling, just reminding you that you're still alive, still here, still becoming. You think back to the first lantern, the one about beginnings, and you marvel at how different you are now from who you were just moments ago. A softer difference, like mist that's shifted shape without anyone noticing. This golden lantern feels heavier, though not in weight, in meaning. You trace its edge with your fingertip and wonder, what am I finally ready to set down? A memory drifts into your mind. Something small, maybe, but sharp. A word you've carried for too long. Or a silence that grew roots where you never wanted them. You breathe in, slow and deep, and speak to it, not with anger, but compassion. I don't need you anymore. You say softly, the way you'd speak to a friend who's moving away. And there it is, that moment of release. Not dramatic, not thunderous, just a quiet decision that hums with grace. You light the lantern. It flares gently, golden paper glowing like sunrise on still water. You feel your chest lighten in response, the way an old tree finally lets go of a stubborn leaf. The lake accepts the lantern as if it had been waiting for it all along. It floats forward slowly, like a goodbye said with gratitude. You sit back, watching it join the others, the final note in a symphony of wishes. And now, as you look across the water, you see what you've really created. Not just a path of light, but a mirror, a reflection of your own becoming. The lake, still and soft, holds all 15 lanterns like chapters of the same soul. They sway, flicker, and glow, not in perfect unison, but in perfect harmony. Each one is a story, a feeling, a part of you that needed to be heard. You lean back on your hands again, letting your head tilt toward the stars. They're everywhere now, scattered like crumbs from some divine dream. A thought rises. What if your story was never about being finished, but about being felt? What if peace isn't the end of the journey, but the way you walk through it? Somewhere nearby, a fish leaps briefly, breaking the surface with a tiny splash. You smile. Not everything wants to stay hidden. You listen to the hum of crickets in the tall grass. You feel the weight of the night softening. You sense the lanterns beginning to dim, not because they've lost their light, but because they've fulfilled their purpose. Even light knows when to rest. The golden lantern drifts the farthest, and somehow that feels right. It was always meant to go the distance. I'm proud of you, you whisper to no one in particular. Or maybe to all the versions of yourself who showed up tonight. The ones who doubted, the ones who hoped anyway, the ones who learned to let go with love. There's something sacred about soft endings, about knowing when to stop holding on, not out of defeat, but because you finally trust what comes next. You close your eyes for a moment, listening, not to sound, but to stillness, to the hush that only comes when something important has been completed. And then you open them again and take one last look. The lake is no longer just water, it's memory, and prayer, and promise, a canvas of every quiet part of you that needed space to float, to shimmer, to drift. You wrap your arms around yourself gently, like drawing in the last warmth of the evening. And you know now, you don't need to hold on to everything to honor it. Some things are meant to be released into the night, with love and light and the softest goodbye. The lanterns begin to flicker now, their glow easing into the night like sleepy fireflies. The lake grows still again, as if it, too, has exhaled. The wishes you sent out are no longer separate from you. They are part of the night, part of the water, part of the stars now blinking softly above. You breathe slower. Each inhale carries in peace, and each exhale lets something else go. No more lanterns to send, no more thoughts to untangle. Just the gentle rhythm of stillness holding you. The hush between heartbeats. The lull that only comes when you know you're safe. Imagine the lake growing wider, its surface softening into silk, the trees becoming silhouettes of memory, and the air cradling you like a lullaby. Even the moon feels closer now, as if keeping watch over your resting spirit. There's nothing more to do tonight, nothing more to chase or fix or become. You are already enough, already whole, already home. Let the sounds of the night wrap around you like a blanket. Let the last shimmer of lantern light guide you into dreams that speak in symbols and stars. And if you wake before morning, remember, the lake is always there. The quiet always welcomes you back. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving yourself this pause, this whisper, this moment. Sleep well now. You've released enough for one night.